Here, hello, everybody tuning in. Appreciate it. So, been traveling a lot. Just got back I was almost a week in Vegas at a business conference. And then I was in New York City a ton, like every other day. I just got back from 3 days in a row in New York City. Lots and lots of conferences going on, lots of business events, a lot of networking events, lots of opportunities to meet other restaurant owners, business owners, and did a lot of speaking in the last week, a lot of speaking. So I wanted to talk today about hiring. The experts you hire might not be the experts you think that they are. This gets pretty tricky because as business owners, I was just talking to somebody else again today. As business owners, we just expect if we're hiring somebody, not our employees, not like our sous chef or our chef, but if you're hiring a chef and he's the expert at cooking, he should be doing the right job. But hiring employees is tough. What we don't put enough energy in is hiring the right accountant, the right attorney, the right ad agency, the right, all these professionals that we're subcontracting out to, the right plumber, the right electrician. These are the people that can make or break our business, especially when it starts getting into accountants, payroll departments. When you start dealing with an outside payroll agency, an outside payroll company, and they don't know the laws, and this happened to me, and I got in some trouble in the beginning because I just assumed because I was hiring a national paycheck company that they knew everything, and they didn't. They were just running payroll. They didn't care about if I was paying the proper taxes properly, if I was, paying them. Literally in New York State, and it's like this a lot of states, New York State is, if you're in the service industry, restaurants or service, you have to pay those employees every single week. Well, I didn't know that in the beginning, and any restaurant owner that starts in this business, any business owner would say, gee, if you're a numbers person, you'd be like, okay, if I run payroll every 2 weeks, it's cheaper than running it every week because the administration fees are only once as opposed to twice. Right? So you're going to save money on those kind of things. Checks, administration fees, having somebody in payroll office, they hand out payroll if you're a smart place. All that just saves time, right? So a lot of restaurants would be like, yeah, I'm going to do it every 2 weeks. Well, we were using a national paycheck company when we first opened, and they were running us at every 2 weeks. They weren't telling us the laws. Folks, when you hire professionals, you need to know the laws just as much as they do, and it sucks, and it's counterproductive, and it's sort of like an oxymoron because you're hiring somebody. I've seen some really, really bad attorneys out there that have gotten their clients in trouble. I've seen some really bad advice from accountants that have gotten their clients in a lot of trouble. Folks, the last thing you want is just the labor board, the IRS, knocking at your door claiming you owe them all this money. It is an expensive legal battle, even if you don't legitimately owe them that money, to pay to get this covered. And this happened to me. We paid, oh my gosh, 1 year. They said we owed all this sales tax, and my accountant wasn't monitoring certain things that we should have been paying sales tax on. So, for example, in New York State, the guy comes to clean our tap lines. That's a service. The guy cleaning the tap lines doesn't charge a sales tax, but the state expects me to all of a sudden turn around and pay the state sales tax on a service that I received from somebody who's not charging me tax. So if your accountant doesn't catch things like that and teach you and educate you, and it happened to us, we had several things our first, 4 or 5 years that were like that. And it wasn't many, but it was several, but it raised a red flag. They came in, they said all of a sudden we owed them $55,000 in back taxes. And it was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like 55, like I'm going to close my doors. 4 years in, owing 55 grand, I'm closing my doors. I'm sorry. Why? This is like way out of hand. And it comes to turn out, we fought her all the way down. My wife was very diligent, and she kept, the inspector would want this. We'd go back and say, here we go, we got it covered. Here we go, we got it covered. Here we go, we got it covered. Legitimately, we owed $400 in sales tax. Legitimately, $400. We settled at like $1,100 because our accountant was like, listen, you just keep paying me to do all this stuff at a high price per hour, and our firm. So our fees are like $8 grand to fight a case that cost us $1,200 to $1,100 just to write the check and be done with it on something that was legitimately $400 in taxes that we legitimately owed. But at that point, when you're at that certain point, you just give up. You're saying, I don't want to, I'm paying all this money to my accountant who got me in the trouble in the first place. And I was like, man, I can't. And that was the last time I ever used that accountant, by the way. I have a much, much better accountant now. So folks, the lesson here is just because you hire an expert an attorney, an accountant, especially payroll, even if it's a national company. Because the labor board came in and I got in trouble for paying every 2 weeks as opposed to every week. They slapped me on the wrist. Nothing really major because I wasn't really doing anything wrong, but it sucks that now you're on their radar. Or whatever happens, that and I'm thinking, man, this national paycheck company should know this, folks. It's your business. It's your responsibility to know this stuff and ask questions and making sure. I was speaking to somebody today, a matter of fact, and we were talking about stuff, and I'm like, go to your accountant right now and you make sure that that's the case. And if that's not the case, you do a little more research, because this it sounds too good to be true, right? It's like, so you better make sure, because ultimately, he was saying, yeah, man, I'm going to get in trouble, and it's not going to be my accountant's fault. I said, no, it's your fault when you're in trouble. It's not your accountant's fault when you're in trouble. It's your fault. You're the one. There's no guarantees when you hire these professionals to come do this stuff for you. There's no guarantees whatsoever. So, yeah, so that's my word of advice now. So, folks, stay really up on all this. Hire really good. Sometimes now in my case, the first accountant I had was outrageously expensive. My second accountant is not that nearly as expensive, and a ton better. So even if you're hiring the best, sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they don't know at all. All right, folks, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, drop your questions below, and I see there is a question below. Roger's saying, Marcus, how the restaurant business can survive coronavirus, please. Roger, remind me where you're at. I know we've spoken several times, but just remind me where exactly you live. I mean, not that the coronavirus is only in the U.S., it's all over the world right now. So, how can a restaurant? So this is an interesting question. My wife and I were talking about this today. Like, we were in New York City this week. Hotels were a half the price, a third of the price. The hotels were dirt cheap. We were walking by busy restaurants that should have been busy, that were totally dead. I'm like, there's nobody, like restaurants that have been there for years that are successful restaurants. Nobody's sitting in these restaurants. New York City is dead. I'm like, wow. So here's the time, folks, that you should be doing so much extra marketing, because it's a marketing game now. Now, for me, we serve healthy food. So for me, my campaign started today. Like, hey, you are what you eat. You eat garbage food, you're gonna have a garbage immune system. You eat garbage food, your immune system starts in your gut, and this and that. And I told my whole story of how I was sick. Pneumonia every other year, bronchitis every other year as a kid growing up until I was 28 years old. I told my story of how the food I used to eat, and it wasn't junk food, it was just fried food. It was white flour, it was lots of sugar, creme brulee. It was all these rich foods that we were serving in these 5-star restaurants, hotels that I was working at, but it was so excessive that I didn't need all that, So I told a story about how I cleaned my diet up, got everything out of my diet, dropped every single medication I had, including asthma, strengthened my immune system, haven't had pneumonia since. So you are what you eat. So that's our campaign now. You are what you eat. So if you want to go out and eat, make sure you're honoring your body, eating foods that are going to actually nourish you. So that's my whole take right now for my business. I know everybody else's business is different. I think you have to do a lot of training with your staff on the coronavirus and make sure, like, I've always been on top of this, like, man, especially in the summertime, people come out on our front sidewalk to eat, and they have dogs, right? Well, the dog shouldn't have its paws on the table outside or even inside. The waitstaff shouldn't be petting the dogs because, it's just not proper sanitation. Waitstaff should not be sitting there twirling their hair, touching their face, and things like that. And I think you need to put something out in public display where the guests can see your staff cleaning their hands constantly, whether it's a bottle of Purell or other kind of natural, sanitizer, something where your guests can actually see, hey, bam, that staff's on top of it. That bartender's been washing his hands. I was literally at an event the other night. On Saturday night, I was at an event. It was a big shindig, really awesome, amazing, a lot of money, and I was a guest. During the cocktail hour, there was a sushi station. 2 guys there rolling sushi, cutting and serving. One of the guests, an older gentleman, maybe in his mid-60s, picks up garbage, so a couple sushi rolls that had dropped on the floor, some chopsticks, gotten stepped on maybe, picks it up with his bare hand. The guest picked it up with a bare hand, hands it to the sushi chef. The sushi chef grabs it with his gloves on, throws it in the garbage, and then continues to slice sushi. I was like, oh my gosh, like even coronavirus, no coronavirus, that is just so unsanitary and you're asking for trouble. Folks, you have to train your staff not to do stupid crap like that. That was the stupidest thing that an employee could have ever done. And I watched the whole thing go down. I'm like, idiots, total idiots. But you know, you have to train your staff. Like a lot of people think like, oh, we have gloves in the kitchen and my staff has gloves on. They put the gloves on, they leave the gloves on for an hour, don't take them off and don't wash their hands. Folks, that is worse. Then they take off the glove and they don't wash your hands because after you take the glove off, you've created a moist, warm spot for bacteria to grow in your fingers and all your skin. And so they just take off the gloves. Well, my hands are clean because they were clean an hour ago and I put the gloves on and then start touching food. Make sure you educate. We give all of our staff pamphlets on coronavirus. And this is all basic, simple sanitation that your guests need to know that you're doing. That's happening, that you're doing. And you know, if any of you are relying upon Chinese produce, Chinese garlic, things like that, I'm going to imagine that your price is going to go up drastically on that. I'm imagining it's going to go up really big. A lot of shiitakes in America, folks. The mulch comes from China. It might be grown here in the U.S., but the mulch comes from China. They bring it here, the sawdust, the mulch, they bring it here, and then they water it, and it spawns. So there's soybeans, there's so many things, soy sauces, there's so many things that are coming out of China that I'm assuming are going to affect your supply on food. Garlic being one of the most predominant ingredients that are coming, calamari, shrimp coming out of Asia, and even if it's not coming from infected areas, I spoke to a beef supplier yesterday who pulls beef from New Zealand. He was like, Marcus, we have no supply issues. You know, that's not the issue. It's supply. The supply is there. It's a matter of sending back empty containers right now. Like things aren't just going like they used to go, and we have all these containers stacked up here that need to get back to put more product in. And it's just they're not getting back right now. Pallets are stacking up. These shipping containers are stacking up. So at some point, I'm assuming our supply is going to be affected. So, and people are still going to want to go out to eat, especially where I am up in the country. So I'm in more in a secluded area up in the country. New York City is an hour and a half away from me. People want to ditch the city, get up to their country house, but they still either want to eat or they're going to want to eat. They want to come to the restaurant or they're going to want delivery. I think delivery is going to play a major role in this, but I think you have to let your guests know that, hey, we're taking all sanitary precautions here and this and that and this and that, and you might have to find that you're adjusting your menu as certain food items are going to probably skyrocket. So yeah, that's the deal with that. Good question, Raj, because that's a really serious thing that I think a lot of us are facing. And if you're like in Italy right now, everything's on lockdown. This is a major issue. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And until the next video.